Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It all depends on where you're watching from. So, um, as you all know, there are a lot of things to talk about. So let's take it one step at a time. First, the headline is the LGBT issue, where the American president, Joe Biden, has taken a stand, to punish Uganda for the law that they passed in their parliament. So the issue here is that if America have the right to pass laws within their own parliaments as dictated by their laws, then others can as well talk about it and yet not do anything about it to the extent of maybe trying to ban the American officials either from visiting their countries. I've never heard of that before. So, but the most important thing here is that, or annoying thing about this whole thing is that the U.S. President and his cabinet have decided to impose visa restrictions on the Ugandan officials for placing death penalty, which is actually not true, on a same-sex relationship. So they just put that there to just make the whole thing look good. So, but on the whole, that was that. We'll talk about it later. And the other one is, back to Nigeria, is Tinubu receiving ASARI DOKUMBO into the ASARI Villa, so, and the discussions they had. So I'm not surprised that Asari Dukuba was, you know, invited into the, the Asu Rock because he has been a strong supporter of Tinubu himself and has been a member of the APC. So he has been a voice in support of Tinubu. So that must have been for a reason, best known to him. So that's not the issue. The issue is what he said and how he said it. That is making the headline when he started to accuse the military and the navy, especially, that is the army and the navy, especially, as being the one involved in 99% of all the bunkering and oil thefts that is taking place in the Niger Delta. So I guess he knows what he's talking about because he lives there. Not just not just that he came from there, he lives there. Most of the time of year and things like that. So he must have seen something and he said it boldly. So I believe him. In that case. So, but first, let's go back to what the LGBT issues are and how the Europeans came to Africa with the Bible and tried to complicate themselves at the same time with the same Bible in which they came with. So, I would like to take you to Professor Lumumba on his whole stand and his own take on all of this. So, because as you know, he doesn't hide or shy out from saying his mind as far as these things are concerned, or as far as these things concerns, the continent of Africa, which is a very proud, son of Africa to start with. So let's just take it, bit by bit. Then maybe at the end of the day, we'll be able to, you know, get something out of it. So, but ladies and gentlemen, if you are coming or visiting this channel for the first time, please try and subscribe. So please share videos and give us a thumbs up. God bless you as you watch. Please watch it to the end. Thank you.
sure many of you know why it is so great to have a brother in the Lord, PLO Lumumba. He is a renowned speaker, especially on the continent of Africa. Professor PLO is a director of School of Law. He previously was also the director of the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission. He's an anti-corruption activist, he's an anti-corruption speaker, he is a mentor of presidents, members of parliament, and he's a mentor for the whole of Africa. We know him as a widely sought after speaker, and I was very worried when I thought he would not be able to make it. But I thank God that he found room in his diary to be with us today. Please welcome with me Professor PLO Lumumba.
Rediscovering the vision, the biblical vision of mentorship. And in my view, it is very important, particularly in Africa. Today, when I travel across the continent, and I do, in many countries, I am amazed by the number of buildings whose owners claim are churches. In a distance of 1 kilometer, you will see different denominations. The Bible is now the greatest instrument in creating false industries in the continent of Africa. And that is not to be celebrated. It is to be frowned upon. And we who claim to be Christians, and I normally use this very deliberately, we claim to be Christians. As to whether we are is another debate. We'll only discover that a little later when we are in heaven. And therefore, when we talk about rediscovering, we are saying that it was once discovered. But let us situate the Bible in its proper place. Christianity as we know it today in the continent of Africa was midwifed to us in the continent through Europe, through the missionaries. When they came, they were reading the very same Bible that we are reading today. When they sat in Berlin and were dividing the continent of Africa, they were reading the same Bible that we are reading today. The same Bible in which, in Paul's letter to the Galatians at chapter 3:28, he says, there are no Jews, no Gentiles, no slave, no free, no woman, no man. They read that verse. It was not interpolated later after they came. They read it. But they came here and conquered us. They came here and discriminated against us. The same Bible. They were being mentored by that very same Bible. They came here when they had divided the body of Christ. The English had appropriated the religion in 1534, and they now had their Anglican church, complete with the monarch as its head. The Scots had appropriated their own, and they had the Presbyterian church. The Greeks had their Greek Orthodox. The Armenians, the Armenian Orthodox. The Roman Catholics were even bolder. They called it the Roman Catholic Church. So that even when they are in Uganda, it's not Ugandan Catholic Church, it is the Roman Catholic Church. And you are going there and you are saying you are Roman Catholic Church. In apartheid South Africa, they are the Dutch Reformed Church, which became the foundation stone upon which apartheid was articulated in 1948 by Hendrik Verwoerd and his cohorts. So the Bible has been misused. Don't be cheated. Let's not be nice to each other because we are Christians. The Bible has been misused. It has been used to support slavery. It has been used to support colonization. It has been used to pervert the truth. That is the Bible that we are saying we ought to rediscover. So when we are gathered here as Christians and we are talking about rediscovery of mentorship in the Bible, we must have a spirit that is a questioning spirit. When His grace was preaching to us, He said, we must always be nice before we are good. Not always. And I've always talked about two approaches to be found in the Bible. One is of John the Baptist and Herodias. It's a dangerous path where you go out into the public and condemn evil. The only thing that you must know is that when you follow that path, Salome will ask for your head. But there are circumstances when it is necessary. Then there are circumstances when it is necessary to follow the path that His grace has suggested. Read the conversation between Nathan and David and what he did to the wife of Prophet Uriah. He comes and tells him, in this place there was a person who had a lamb. Circumstances define which method you use. And in a forum such as this, we now live in a world where as Christians we are also very pretentious. We don't speak the truth as it ought to be spoken. When I read the Bible sometimes as a Christian, I ask myself, what kind of Christian would I be? I often ask myself, if I lived in the days of Jesus, which of these disciples would I be? Because let us ask ourselves, when were we first called Christians? In fact, if you read the Bible and the history of Christianity and how we were first called Christians in Antioch, it was not a badge of honor to be called a Christian. It was not a badge of honor. It was a statement that these individuals who follow somebody whom we do not respect, whose ideas we do not respect, then we embraced it. But do we question that as Christians when we are reading the Bible? Do we read the Bible? Many of us who make the claim that we are Christians are not good Bible readers, despite your best efforts and best intentions. I normally ask this test question to my audience rather lately, and I'll test it this morning to determine how effectively you read the Bible. When you read the book of Isaiah, chapter 6, it says that in the year that King Uzziah died, the Lord appeared unto Isaiah the son of Amos. Then I ask Christians, and who is King Uzziah? They do not know. They have never read about him in the Chronicles because they are satisfied with what they are preached to and about. Christians don't read the Bible. They read sections of the Bible. And one of the instruments that has now made Christians not read the Bible is social media. They Google a particular section. Your Grace, you'll see if you are from the pulpit occasionally, most of your congregation are not looking at you when you are preaching the word. They are under the table. Many times you read the word and they are looking for it as if it never existed. That is the kind of Christians that we have today, claiming to be Christians. And if they claim to be Christians and you want them to rediscover mentorship from the Bible, how can they be mentored by something whose contents they do not know? I remember when we were baptized, we used to say, I reject the devil with all his works. I'm sure many of you remember that. That is not true. You never rejected the devil with all his works. Those were words that you just spoke on the spur of the moment. I remember one day when my little daughter was getting baptized. So we went for preparation for baptism at my church at the All Saints Cathedral. And the provost of the cathedral asked me, do you believe in child baptism? I said, I do not believe in child baptism. And he said, why are you bringing your child? I said, because I don't want you to give her trouble asking why were you not baptized. And we entered into a debate, and he asked me, why don't you believe in child baptism? I said, it has no biblical basis. Because if it had biblical basis, Christ would have been baptized as a child.
Good point.
That debate still lingers, and I'm quite certain some of you may not agree with me, but it has no biblical basis. As many as believed were baptized. Children cannot believe. They have no power of deciding. I'm still talking about rediscovering mentorship in the Bible. In this congregation, if I were to pick any one of you to recite for me the 10 commandments in the order in which they were given to Moses, I can assure you, and I'll not write, I don't want to embarrass anybody. Out of 10, possibly only 2 would recite them in the order in which they were given. Because to you and me, 10 commandments have become 10 suggestions. 10 suggestions to be obeyed only when it is convenient. And yet, if we were to use the 10 commandments alone as the basis of governing our lives, we would need no other laws in the world. We would need no other laws in the world. But we do not look to the Bible. The Bible does not guide our lives. The Bible is a convenient thing that we make reference to when we want to cover our sins. It has become a moral fig leaf that we use to hide our nakedness. And I want to tell you that until and unless we change our ways, and it's a constant struggle for all of us, I now understand why Christ said how difficult it shall be to get into the kingdom of heaven. I do not know whether it's in Revelation where there is an attempt to say the number of people will get into heaven, and heaven is described. I used to think it was very small. I now know not many people may get there. Not many people may get, despite our pretension to the contrary. It is in Matthew 24:24 where it is recorded that there shall arise many Christs and many prophets who shall work wonders, and inasmuch as it were possible, even the very elect would be cheated by those Christs. And there is no shortage of them today. In every corner, there is a prophet. And they have no shortage of names. Almighty, mighty, prophet. All names of individuals, and we follow them faithfully, and they are Bible thumping. They can make reference to the Bible. But remember, Paul's second letter to Timothy at chapter 3 says, in the end, in these end days, and these are those days, don't worry that it may even take another 1,000,000 years before the world ends. God, I'm told, doesn't count the way we do. But these are those days. And therefore, when we are gathered here as Christians, we must ask ourselves painful and difficult questions. Are our lives testaments to our claimed Christianity? Forget the many hallelujahs that we shout. We can shout hallelujah all we want. Forget I'm born again that we shout every minute is our life's testament. To the person that we claim to follow Christ? Or we are merely church-going Christians? On Saturday, if we are from the SDA, we go to church because that is where you meet your friends. And a 1-hour sermon is too long. You lose your pastor after 10 minutes and you are busy playing video games in the pews. Is that the kind of Christian you are? Sunday-going Christian who thinks he's God's gift to the world? Is that the kind of Christian you are? A Christian whose business is to judge others, thinking that you are holier than everybody else? Is that the kind of Christian you are? Because if that is the kind of Christian you are, then you cannot mentor anybody. In Greek mythology, which I want to believe you are all familiar with, there were many gods. One of them was Apollo. And the story goes that he sent out, the oracle was sent out to discover the wisest man in Greece. And when they had gone yonder, they came and said that Socrates was the wisest of all men. Because when he was asked what he knew, he said the only thing that he knew was that he knew nothing. In other words, in order to be truly knowledgeable, you must have humility in you. Are we humble? Because only the humble can be true mentors. And the Bible is full of mentors. Adam was mentored by God, but somehow he was confused, as the Bible says, by Eve, who also claimed that it is Satan who confused her in the first place. So it is not always the case that when you mentor, your mentee turns out right. But that does not mean that mentorship must stop. You rightly said that Moses was mentored by Jethro. Indeed he was. You'll discover the conversation when Moses visited Jethro, and for a whole day he was out judging little petty things. He was told, divide your people into different groups, mentorship, delegation without abdication. Do we do that? Or where we are, we think we are the only ones who know, omnipotent, omniscient in our little offices, because your Christianity is not just about saying you are Christian on a Sunday. Where you work, can people testify? Where you work, the little things you do, can people testify that you are a good person? Not by you saying so, by your words, by your deed. Can people do so? You will excuse me. But many times now, when people tell me they are born again, I say, what are they hiding? And it's out of experience. What are they about to hide? That they start by saying, I'm born again. Because when you are born again, my interaction with you in 10 minutes will show me that you are born again. And I've gone into restaurants and I see somebody and I ask them, are you born again? By conduct. Not by mere words. There is no shortage of Bible-thumping individuals running around claiming they are born again. Those are not mentors. We are here to rediscover mentorship in the Bible. Moses mentors Joshua. Elijah mentors Elisha. And if you go through the Bible, for every king there was a mentor. For David, Nathan. And whenever you are not mentored, then you lose out. Read 2 Chronicles 26, it says, during the whole period that King Uzziah listened to Zechariah, he did great things. But when he stopped doing so, he tried to do that which was reserved for the sons of Levi, and when he entered to perform a sacrifice, leprosy was on his head and he died a leper. When we come before you, do you speak from your hearts? Or you have prepared sermons that you read which do not touch even your own hearts? Do you touch us? Do you care whether we come to Sunday or Saturday as a ritual? Do you care more about our tithing and offerings?
So, let's take another one and see what he has to say about
We've
it.
been crawling for too long. The beauty is that we know we are crawling and we ought to be up and walking. We could have done better. The Organization of African Unity, created in 1963, had a clear mandate, at least in those early days, of ensuring that countries regained their political independence. When the organization transited to the AU, one would have wanted to see a greater pace in all sectors: political stability, education, agriculture, health, trade, and unity. But that is not happening as fast as we want it to happen. And we are not impatient. We are saying that others have done it and we ought to do it, and the sooner we do it, the safer we are. So in a nutshell, the OAU is punching below her weight.
Looking at the current crisis on the continent, the war in Sudan, the DRC, which is part of the Great Lakes, you look at what's happening in Mozambique, Cabo Delgado, ahead of Zim elections or elections in Zimbabwe. There are issues that are related to peace and security. Where did we go wrong? There was hope that we will reduce the coups. You look at the West Africa in particular right now.
It is true that we are doing very badly. Remember, the year 2021 was declared by the African Union as the year of silencing of the guns. And this was made on the realization that if we don't silence the guns, then all the things we are talking about, including Agenda 2063, Africa Continental Free Trade Area, will not be realized. And the tragedy is that we find ourselves in a situation where the guns are even louder. And this is attributable to poor political leadership. Chinua Achebe put it so very well in 1983. The problem of Africa is simply and squarely a problem of politicians who are myopic, who are selfish, whose only claim to fame is that they use political office for short-term political benefit to the detriment of the people. And that is why, as you've rightly said, we now see a conflict which could very easily degenerate into a civil war in Sudan. We know what is happening in the DRC, Eastern Congo. You've talked about Cabo Delgado, the coup d'etat that we have seen in Burkina Faso and in Mali, the attempted coup in Guinea-Bissau. All these are statements of poor leadership. And as the wise say, rebellion and coups are the language of the people who are not heard. And the time is now that Africa must re-examine governance. There is also the truth is that some of these governance systems that we inherited from the colonizers are proving very difficult to be effective. The thing we call democracy, which is defined for us by Western world to mean periodic elections complete with multi-party politics, these are some of the things that we ought to be bold enough to ask. Are there elements within our traditional governance structures that can be infused in governance in order to limit conflict and to ensure that conflict is mediated in a proper fashion?
Looking at other issues like your challenges facing the ordinary people, there's also some concerns in terms of how leaders are conducting themselves. I mean, an example of the president of Uganda, who has been in power for quite a long time, the recent law that was passed by that parliament. Many people say this is a violation of the human rights.
On that one, I agree with President. It's not about President Museveni. I personally have supported President Museveni on that bill. And this is a point, this is an issue on which we'll have different opinions. The regime of rights which we are being asked to follow is a regime of rights that was imposed by the Western world in 1948, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. When the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was being initiated in Paris, no African country was independent. And at that time, they said that civil and political rights were the most important. Then they said that economic and cultural rights were important. Then they say development rights. Now they say all rights are interdependent and therefore they are universal. But we must ask ourselves the fundamental question: don't we have rights that are uniquely African? And on the question of this idea of being told periodically by the Western world that these are the rights that we must deal with, it is incumbent upon us to come out very clearly. When the white man came here and imposed laws on us, whether it's the common law or the Dutch Roman law, they told us at that time that there is something called sex against the order of nature. Has nature changed? So we must be very slow to personalize laws. We must be very slow. And these arguments that they bring about bills relating to LGBTQ, they'll never say them to the Arabs. They'll never go to Kuwait. They'll never go to Bahrain. They'll never go to Brunei. They'll never go to Saudi Arabia. They'll never go to Indonesia to tell them. It is Africans who they think are tails to be wagged. So on this issue, the government of the Uganda and the people of Uganda, I am with them 100%. There is no freedom outside of the law.
How do you balance the decision or the right to choose?
Choose what? The choice must be limited according to the mores of a different community. And in any event, should we be talking about LGBTQ when we have no food on the table? And the danger, including with you journalists, is that now when you interview people, you have your own position that you want to impose on us. We refuse. We know.
In the United Nations Human Rights Council.
But the United Nations Human Rights Council, is it some god? Is it not a body that is composed of human beings who have created a body where some are permanent members and some are not permanent members?
So I think the man had just said everything, like it was meant to be said, because this thing is really getting out of hand, because the US and the Western medias are taking this whole issue upon themselves, to the extent that the US has to impose visa restrictions on Uganda officials for placing, um, let's say, for passing a law, that is anti same-sex marriage, in that country or in that part of the world. So I think it's the right of Uganda, Ugandans, to make their own laws that pleases their people and according to their culture. So why are they pressing or trying to force or twist African countries to accept these laws? Simply because they are giving us some so-called aids to Africa. So they are using the aids to, that is, the money they are giving out to them, the tokens that they are giving out to them, the aids package and things like that. So these are the things now that they are being used, to try to, blackmail them, so to say, in order for them to, you know, put this law in a way and manner that it favors the West. So I think, to me personally, I think what they are trying to do is to make those areas a heaven for those same people which they profess to be fighting for. But actually, what they are doing is that, when those countries have those kind of laws in place, then definitely they will be pushing those people out of their countries, and now out of the US and the Western countries, pushing them, into these areas of Africa and other parts of the world, where they now go there and start to corrupt other people and spread their diseases and stuff like that. So that is the way I see it. So if that's not the case, why don't they take the so-called people that they think are practicing these things in some of those countries in Africa? These people are quite in the minority. They are not even up to, 0.0000 point, 0.point, zero minute 1% or anything like that, within a given society in Africa, because this is out of the tradition, or out of the culture of the Africans, So most of these people who are practicing these things these days, either most of them are, turns to or becomes what they become, either through the influence of the Western medias, Western videos and things like that, or by some other means, which I will not know. So, but what I do know is that they are quite in the minorities. So you cannot use those minorities now to come and, let's say, saturate or destroy the same culture that we have lived on, or that our society has been built upon for the past, thousands of years, etc. When the colonial masters and their cultures and traditions were nowhere to be seen, or have any influence over our culture. So I think they should keep their culture to themselves and allow us also to make our laws and rules, so that, in the future, then the next generation will know, how to proceed, with their own lives. So, but when you put that in document, and it becomes a documented issue, then definitely some children will be born without knowing or having the idea that these things were supposed to be a taboo, in the African culture and tradition. Then they will think that is something that is allowed. So, and then they'll be misused, you know. So we don't want that. So please, what I'm saying is that the US should leave Uganda alone, or leave African countries alone. Let them pass their laws that suits their own people, suits their own cultures, suits their own traditions, and suits their own countries. So if you want, if you are looking for a place to impose all these your Western cultures and things like that, why don't you go and try Saudi Arabia and other like Lumumba, Professor Lumumba just said, like Bahrain and so many other Arab countries, and see how far you can go. So why don't you leave Africa alone? But do you not think that Africa will be a very soft target, for you to go in there and try to blackmail them and try to twist them to accept your traditions and culture, you know, and as well put into their own law. What about if we were to have some other kind of culture that you don't accept, in the EU or in the West, and let's say and things like that? Then you think, then we will be, we- do we have to, now bring you in a position whereby we have to start press your parliamentarians, and your government to try to put those cultures and put those laws into your own laws, as if we own your country or we own. I mean, that is not done anywhere. So the US should just stay out of this, and especially this Joe Biden and this Obama people and stuff like that. That was how they came with the Boko Haram and the rest, and then before you know it, he started pressurizing the past government then in 2014, that the government then of the government of Jonathan then did not also attest to this kind of laws, because then they were asking Jonathan government then to also attest to this kind of laws. Then they said no, so they took it to the parliament, and the parliament also rejected it, and even said, place a death penalty on that same this thing. So that was what happened. So after then the all Obama came together with so many other politicians, even within the Nigeria, you know, Nigeria on the Nigeria side, and the US, and then they try to congregate and blackmail, the government then, as at then, that the government was so corrupt and things like that and whatever, simply because the government did not go ahead to do what they wanted the government to do. Because what Jonathan told them there was that this is anti-Africa and this is un-African and this is not, in our culture, that we don't do this. So the same thing Mugabe also told them, as at that time, etc. So these were the men that they met then. So now all of a sudden, after Mugabe has died or passed, he still rest in peace. Then now you know, thought that maybe Kenya and Uganda would be another target. So they tried it with Kenya. Then now they tried it with Uganda, and they got a slap again, upon their face. So what I'm saying is that I think some African leaders actually have learned their lessons, and they are really actually on this very issue. They are in unison, you know, with that. So that's the much I can take for that. So, but as for that, that was that. So let me take you briefly on what our brother said. Here is, you see, they said here said 99% of oil theft carried out by Army Navy. DOKUMBO test Tinubu. So Tinubu and DOKUMBO was yesterday, together in a closed door meeting. So here it said the Niger Delta Volunteer Force (NDVF), the former Niger Delta agitator Alhaji ASARI DOKUMBO, on Friday said over 99% of air theft in the country was carried out by the Nigerian Navy and the Nigerian Army. So DOKUMBO said all this whole thing yesterday at the villa. So let me see a clip of the video, then can wrap it up from there. So here's a clip of the video.
Even if they give 1 billion contracts, oil theft can be traced to the Nigerian military, the Army and the Navy especially. The Army and the Navy intimidate the civil defense, who are by status the people who are supposed to guard these pipelines. They receive a lot of money from NNPC, PCL, and the IOCs, and just across the corner, you will see a houseboat. A few meters from the houseboat, you will see an oil bunkering refinery or tapping directly from oil well heads. It is very pathetic now. What is happening in the Niger Delta in the past 8 years was unprecedented in the history of oil production anywhere in the world. The vandals do not only attack the pipelines, they have migrated from the pipeline and have gone directly to the oil wellheads, and they take directly from the oil wellheads. They set up haphazard facilities they call local refinery, artisan refinery. This is crime against humanity because the livelihood of the people is being totally destroyed. The livelihood of the people is totally destroyed. And every meter you see a naval houseboat or an army houseboat stationed. So the main culprits are the army and the navy. And there are notorious naval commanders who are known to be kingpins of these bunkering activities. Even if they give 1 billion contracts to everybody in the Niger Delta, because these military men are armed from the army and the navy, nothing will happen. The president has promised to take decisive action to make sure that this does not continue. It is brought to an end. It is very shameful. So I had volunteered to help.
So you heard that from DOKUMBO himself, but my issue with him actually is that after all this thing that he just said, so it's not clear, it's not actually clear what his missions was, as far as this few things that he just said here, because he made some little mention of this thing, which I don't know if I even have much time again to go forward and see, because he made mention about, the Boko Haram and how he became, another volunteer, in the past government, in the north. That's in some part of the north where he was involved with his boys to try to, quell the activities of some insurgents. So he mentioned one Dogo that I think that they've already neutralized. So he was kind of taking the credit for that. That his boys did that, on the Kaduna Niger Axis or Abuja Niger Kaduna Axis and stuff like that. That now people can now travel freely, and stuff like that. So that all credits to him and stuff. So after saying that, then he mentioned the IPOB as being the problem in the southeast and the ESN as well. So that is where I really have problem with him there, because if this guy was actually serious, I was really sincere, maybe he would have said something else better than that, because everybody know what ESN stood for. That ESN actually, we are on the receiving end, and there are people in the east, we are on the receiving end. So ESN has to be formed because the governors were doing nothing, to protect their own people and stuff like that. They just, expose their own people to dangers and stuff like that. Even while the West, the Nigeria and the West or the Southwest were also forming something. In fact, ESN was formed before the, what do you call it, the Southwest volunteer, and this thing that was formed later, volunteer force that was formed later. First, it was ESN for, because ESN, the East, in the eastern part, there was a lot of destruction, killing, raping of women and children, and while people were being killed in their farms and, stuff, and things, the Nigerian government was doing nothing about it. The state government were doing nothing about it. So ESM was left with no option than to try to at least protect their own people. So that was how ESM was formed. So, but I know there's something that this man is hiding, and that pain, every now and then, every little opportunity that he sees, he uses it to display that pain, because He hates Nnamdi Kanu with passion. He has said it on so many occasions. So that is not a new thing. So he used to be very good with Nnamdi Kanu. So, but when I think when he did not find his way to infiltrate, the group the way he wanted to, as at first, because at first he was a member of, or let's say, a member of those group of, the Biafra agitators, as at that time. So then later, when this other guy break out, dossier and stuff, so he break out, then he became his own pally, and he said he was now the Biafra, what did he call himself then? Uh, the interim, I think the interim president of the Biafra. You know, I forgot what they call it, the name he called himself then. So which means he was also a Biafra leader or a faction of the Biafra in struggle as at that time. So, but all of a sudden, then he has just shown himself again, in some other ways. So because now, by saying that alone yesterday, he shows something to me. That is to say that now that their government is in place, or a government where you have an influence and stuff, so definitely, then which means the Ohanese who are trying to negotiate or try to speak with the present government of Tinubu should at least take another approach. If they are serious, with their asking, they should go straight there and ask Tinubu to release Nnamdi Kanu, because after all, the court itself has already released him. So I don't see any reason why they should be holding him back. So when this man needs some medical care, so that is what I can say for now. So if they are trying to use this matter and twist the whole issue again, because I know that if he have his way, like he used to say, if he have his way, that he's going to kill Nnamdi Kanu, with his whole bare hand, or which means if you have an access to go to the DSS and do. So, but that's what I'm saying. Anything that has to be done now for the Ohanes Igbo to raise their voice up and stuff like that with this new government and parley with them, let them parley with the new government to release Nnamdi Kanu, at least first of all, for his head, for his head, uh, for update, of his own head and stuff. So that is it, because this man is not stable, So one day he's saying something else, another day he's saying something very different. So because I think this man is too, it should not be, it should not be trusted. I cannot seem like a man who's fighting for the South or fighting for Niger Delta, and at the same time, fighting for, for the North. I don't know if he's fighting for his wife, who is a Fulani, and his children who are half Fulanis and half Niger Deltas and what have you. So I don't know how he sees himself also. If he sees himself as a Fulani, or he sees himself as a pure Niger Delta man, which 100%, or maybe it's half-half. You never can tell. So, but whatever it is, let him stay on his own lane, and let every other, struggle leaders stay on their lane. But they should keep their eyes on this man, and never lose guard, for this man, because this man is dangerous as far as I'm concerned. So, ASARI DOKUMBO, maintain your lane, enter your house, and shut your mouth, and be an elder. If you are an elder, behave yourself. That's all I have to say for now. So that is that. So for every other thing, I think we have to take everything the way they come, and let's keep our fingers crossed. I hope that the new government is able to do something as far as that area is concerned. So let at least the rule of law, take its place. If the rule of laws are actually adhered to, definitely Nnamdi Kanu is supposed to be out on that May 29th. That will be the first thing that Tinubu do, to make the Niger Delta and the rest of the East, or even the whole of the South, happy. Although I know there are some bad belly, within the East, the Niger Delta, or the so-called South, or the so-called Southwest, and even in the North. So that's it. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for passing by. To give us a thumbs up, share our videos, let it go viral. Thank you. God bless you.